broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar here today entitled Why We Moodle with eThink. This is actually a panel discussion sort of format here where we're going to do a moderated discussion with some of our clients here at eThink. So very happy to have everybody joining us here today and very happy to have our panelists, who I'll introduce here shortly. I'm going to start. We've got a pretty full hour here for you, so we're going to jump right in. I'm going to start just by touching on the agenda and some housekeeping related items. I'm going to kick us off with just a little bit of context. I won't spend much time there, but I think we do have primarily institutions that use Moodle here today, but a few that perhaps do not. So I will very briefly talk about Moodle and then spend a few minutes talking about what we do here at eThink Education, who we are, what our model is, what our approach is. That'll give you some context for when we move over to the moderated discussion with our panelists, understanding kind of what our model is that these clients of ours are experiencing every day. So I'll move first into introducing them, and then the bulk of our time spent in discussion. We will, I think, have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, and to that end, if you find the questions pane in GoToWebinar, that is where you can submit any questions that you might have. Feel free to drop those there at any time, and we will see if we have a little bit of time at the end, read through those, and then pose any questions that we haven't already covered to our panelists. So that is what our agenda here is today. I am Josh Mitchell. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at eThink, so I'm the one who's going to kind of guide us through and moderate here today. As I said, I want to start just with a little bit of context. I think most everyone should know about Moodle. I think most everyone attending is using Moodle. But for those that may not be as familiar, this is the most widely used LMS in the world. It remains one of the big four in U.S. higher education. Its market share has remained very steady over the years, as there has been some ebb and flow among the other big players, but Moodle has remained very steady. A lot of institutions that began using Moodle did so either because they could host it themselves and therefore have a rather low cost of entry, or because it is such a flexible product. It is so configurable, can be so dynamic and so robust. There's a variety of reasons why folks have come to it and why they've stayed on it. But it remains at about a quarter of the market in U.S. higher education and has evolved a lot over the almost 20 years that it's been in existence. Moodle is an open source product. It relies on its partner network to actually provide services and also to drive revenue to the Moodle project. So the Moodle developers at Moodle HQ, most of the revenue that pays for the development of the product comes from partners like us. That's who we are here at eThink Education, is a certified Moodle partner. We're actually the largest Moodle partner in the world. What we do is a little bit different than just about anybody else in the partner network or otherwise. Ours is a very service-heavy model. We do what we call full management of the Moodle platform. That essentially means that everything on the back end we handle for our clients. I think you might hear a little bit today among our panelists some experience that perhaps they were a little nervous at first when we say we're going to do all of these things that perhaps in the past they had done themselves. But that is our model. It is a very service-heavy, very hands-on model, more so than what anybody else in the market offers. And that offers a lot of value and a lot of advantages for our clients. We do host with Amazon Web Services. It's a managed hosting model. Through the last 6-7 months, as we've dealt with COVID and the fallout from that, that's become very important. Just keeping sites online, keeping them functioning at a high level without degradation of performance has been something that we've been very successful with. That's not true of every vendor in the Moodle space. That's actually one of the reasons a lot of recent clients have moved over to us, whether they were self-hosted or with a different provider, is because they did have some issues as they scaled up and had high concurrency. So that's something that we've done very well, I think, by and large. Some of the other things that we do, I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I want to take most of our time today to talk to our panelists. But some of the things that we do as part of our service model, we handle all the branding and theming for our clients. So the look and feel of their site can be very configurable, of course, with Moodle, and we do all of that for them as part of full management. We do a lot of customization to reporting in particular. That's a big value add for a lot of clients that have moved over to us, is we use the configurable reports block in Moodle. We essentially write custom SQL queries And that's a standard part of support. Our clients don't pay extra to have us write them custom reports. So that's a big value add, something that a lot of clients that have moved over have been able to take advantage of. We keep all of our clients on separate code bases. What that allows us to do is upgrade our clients at a time of their choosing rather than a predefined window that we force everyone into. And it also gives them the flexibility to use whatever plugins and modules they might want to use, as long as we take a look at them and see that they're well supported and aren't going to break their site. So we install and configure those things at no cost. We don't have sort of a pre-approved list that only those plugins can be installed or anything else has to be paid to be vetted or tested. This again is just a standard part of support, taking a look at plugins, installing them, configuring them, etc. Integration is a big part of what we do as well. We have a lot of capability in that area to integrate with student information systems. Pretty much every SIS that's on the market in higher education today, we have a client, at least one, and often many, who are using. We also have clients that have some homegrown systems. And generally speaking, we're able to integrate in real time in a fully automated manner with all of those different SISs. There's some nuance there. Not every client takes advantage of all of the components of our integration. It's highly configurable, but that is something that really our goal is to automate as much as possible. And we've been very successful in doing that and freeing our clients up to not have to do some of the manual administration with Moodle that they perhaps were doing before. And at the end of the day, when I talk about this fully managed model that we offer, that really relies on good quality customer service. I talked about how we're the largest Moodle partner in the world. Over that same time period that we've grown to become the largest Moodle partner, over almost 13 years in business, we've also maintained about a 98% retention rate. And really the reason that we've been successful in maintaining our client base as it is and growing it is because of the quality of support we offer. So the average time, we measure these statistics out of Zendesk, the average time to responding to support tickets from our clients when they come in month after month after month is roughly 45 minutes or even less. And that, I think, really speaks volumes about how we approach service, the quality of the team that we have, and how committed they are to taking care of our clients. So that's a little bit about our model. I didn't want to spend a ton of time there because I want to get into our discussion here today. And so first, I will introduce Hart Wilson, who's an instructional designer at Southern Oregon University, who've been with us since 2017. So Hart, we're happy to have you today if you want to say hello.
Hi, thanks, Josh. I'm happy to be here. It's good to see everybody.
Very good. Happy to have you. And we're going to look forward to hearing a lot about your experience, not only migrating to eThink a few years ago, but you've been with us for enough time now to see a lot of changes. So we'll be looking forward to hearing about that. And we also have Luis Hernandez, who is the Associate CIO at Amherst College, and they've been with us, I think, for about a year and a half now. So Luis, happy to have you as well, if you want to say hello as well.
Hi, I'm happy to be here and introduce eThink to new people.
Very good. Well, thank you, Luis. And we did have, initially we had a third panelist lined up, but some things came up, and so we were not able to include them today, but we're going to spend a lot of time hearing from Hart and Luis, and so we'll get right into it here. We're going to kind of sit on this slide as we talk so you can place a face with a name. But Hart, maybe I'll start with you. Obviously, I've introduced what you do at SOU, but can you talk a little bit more about SOU and your history with Moodle and just your history at SOU?
Okay, great, thanks. Well, I have been here for about 20 years, and I've been working as an instructional designer for the last 9 or 10 years. We've been with Moodle now since 2011. We were early adopters of Blackboard, but we never got beyond the basic version. So we were thrilled to go to Moodle and have some real functionality. And that kind of sums it up so far. I've got a lot more to tell you later.
Great, excellent. Well, we'll come back to some of that here in a moment. But Luis, if you want to kind of address the same, what you do at Amherst, how long you've been there, and Amherst's experience and history with Moodle as well.
Sure. So I've been at Amherst for 6 years. I started there as a director of IT services. And I work very closely with the director of technology for curriculum and research, Jaya Cannon, and she and her team oversee the day-to-day operation of Moodle. But we partnered to basically find a company that could host Moodle for us because we were hosting it on campus. And I asked my team members, because Moodle predates me at Amherst, and they told me that the first courses appear to have been in the fall of 2006. So we've been using it for a long time too. And before that, it was Blackboard. So I know there was a transition, but I don't have much details about that.
Excellent. Well, Luis, why don't we stay with you and kind of dig into that a little bit more deeply? So I guess what I want to ask about is kind of what led you to want to look at managed hosting. So obviously, you, as I said, you transitioned to us in 2019. But what was going on campus, or what challenges were you having that led you to say we really ought to look at moving this to a managed hosting provider?
So we adopted a cloud-first mentality a couple of years ago, and it's been a slow start, to be honest with you. But when Jaya joined our team, we really started the conversation in all seriousness, because we had some turnover. And when you have people who are responsible for Moodle, in this case, for a system, and they leave, that knowledge leaves with them. And unfortunately, you have to distribute it with the rest of the team. And some people pick up more than others. And the other piece was that we were slow to upgrade Moodle. I have to admit, we didn't have it up to date all the time. And issues came up every now and then, such as bandwidth and issues with the system itself, that it was all on us. The entire responsibility for keeping Moodle up was completely on the IT folks. And we wanted to move it to the cloud because we wanted a partner like eThink to be able to help us with that and take ownership of the daily operation of the system.
Excellent. No, that's great. I'll come back to you, Luis, in a minute, because I want to talk a little bit more about that decision-making process and whatnot. But first, I'll ask Hart sort of the same question. You actually moved from a different provider to eThink when you made that move, and I think as part of that, looked also at other learning management systems. So can you just talk a little bit about the decision-making processes that you went through, what you considered, and kind of what led to even starting a process like that?
Sure. We've been hosted ever since we adopted Moodle back in 2011, and we were hosted at Moodle Rooms, and our contract with them was getting ready to expire, and we were certainly ready for a change at the same time. We didn't want to renew our contract with them for a number of reasons. We didn't have good customer service. We didn't like their mandated upgrade schedules. We didn't really like how they calculated active users, and it was also prohibitively expensive to add plugins. So we were really happy with Moodle, but we went ahead and ran a full LMS review just to make sure that Moodle was the best option for us. So at that time, what we ended up looking at was Schoology, Desire to Learn, and Canvas, as well as Moodle. So when we were looking at systems, what we were looking at was a number of factors. We had a task force we put together, and they looked at things like the pedagogical tools and the resources provided first and foremost. What would it actually do for us? Then we looked at the ease of use for the course developers, that's our faculty and our students. We looked at accessibility, including mobile apps. We looked at integration with Banner so that we would have automated course creation out of our student information system. We also thought a lot about converting our existing courses if we were to change from Moodle, and looking at analytics that we could get, looking at the licensing and support costs. There were just a lot of things that go into a whole LMS review. So when we went through that, what we felt was that a different LMS was really going to have a significant benefit beyond what Moodle provides, so that would offset the pain and the time commitment that we'd have if we moved to a different system. So as it turned out, none of the other platforms that we looked at really knocked our socks off. So we just decided to stay with Moodle.
Great.
I can go on.
No, we're happy. We're happy you did, obviously, and we're happy as well as you did that. You chose us.
Yeah.
I think my recollection is you certainly didn't only consider eThink as a Moodle provider. So what were some of the Moodle specific factors that you looked at, and obviously they ended up in your choosing us, but what were some of the Moodle specific things that you were really considering other than integration, which you mentioned, for example?
Oh, actually integration was such a big thing, and I just have to tell you now that I'm crazy about Moodle. So I really love Moodle and what it does. So, I'm really pretty happy with every aspect of it. There's so many things that we can do with it, and it's so flexible in finding different ways of doing things. When we looked at different Moodle hosts, because we knew we wanted to remain hosted, you know, we're a state school, we're a public school, we're never going to have a lot of money to put into staffing. So being hosted was really important for us to have somebody else manage all those processes that we don't have the expertise to do. So when we looked at other Moodle hosts, we were really impressed with the customer service orientation that eThink has, and we were really enthralled as well with how deeply they understand Banner and how well that integration would work. So having our user and course creation and enrollment all happening in real time is really exciting. So another factor that we looked at too was that eThink had a ton of experience in migrating clients from Moodle rooms. And so we were confident that they would handle that migration well.
Great. Yeah, I think at the time you came over, it was in the neighborhood of probably 60 or so institutions that had come from Moodle rooms. It's probably over 80 now at this point. It's quite a lot. So we're happy that you were one of those. So I'll come back in a few moments, Hart, and talk more about you know, how it's kind of gone from there. But first, Luis, let me ask you some of the same questions that Hart just addressed. So specifically, well, I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, when you started to look, did you consider other learning management systems as well, or did you just lock in on Moodle? And as you made those decisions, as you looked at your options, what were some of the factors that you considered?
So we honestly considered it for a second, because we went through this when we went from Blackboard to Moodle. It was a very fraught transition, and this is, again, predates me being at Amherst, but I still hear about it. So there was no other choice, really. I mean, if we talked about it, it was probably for like 3 seconds and said, no, we're not doing this. So we wanted to stick with Moodle. As far as a partner, we were definitely worried about the integration. But eThink was great working with us. We're still in Colleague. We're in the transition to Workday. And because we're in Colleague, we have a very strange system to allow us to get the courses, the students, and the faculty into Moodle. And eThink worked really well with us to be able to integrate with that system as opposed to an actual SIS. And then we're looking forward to, once we are with Workday SIS in probably 2 years, or maybe less than 2 years, integrating with that. So the faculty are really happy with, they were really happy with the way that we had set up Moodle before the transition. So we knew we wanted to retain a lot of the aspects that we already had. eThink was really instrumental in guiding us through the process, because there were some integrations that couldn't be loaded, but eThink provided alternatives, and the alternatives that they provided worked out really well. So that was really important. The other important thing was when we were evaluating companies, if I remember correctly, we evaluated another one in addition to eThink. What struck us was the difference in approach. One company was offering us, you know, everything under the sun at very, very little cost. And what we liked about eThink is that they were very honest. We honestly, they were honest about what we could and couldn't do in their system, but they also provided alternatives to doing things differently, because moving to the cloud is not the same as hosting it in your data center. So you have to think differently about how you're going to integrate and how you're going to pull the data and push data into that system.
That's great. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm always very honest when I speak to people as they're considering options, that we're not going to be the least expensive. Our model is different, and it carries a higher cost. So we try to be very upfront about that. But we like to talk about the value that you get with that. So I guess, obviously, you're both here, you're both clients. So I guess where we'll go next, and Luis, will stay with you, is just is kind of an assessment of how we met the expectations you had. You made the decision to come here for certain reasons. You know, did we live up to what you expected? We'll dig more into some individual topics first, but I'll just kind of ask that in an open-ended way first.
Absolutely, absolutely. It started with the launch of the project. I mean, the way that the approach that eThink has is exactly what I expected, according to the initial communications that we had. And it was a highly professional. You have a project management methodology that definitely works. So as long as you trust the company, once you make that commitment, it's going to work. You just have to go through the process.
Great, and Hart, I'll ask you the same. You know, how you made the decision for certain reasons. Did you find that it was as advertised, or what's your assessments of that?
Well, you know, when we were making our choice of partner, we really liked the idea that with eThink, we could upgrade on any schedule that made sense for us. And we could also incorporate plugins into our site at no cost. And we've been so happy. You know, when you ask if our expectations were met, they've been exceeded. You know, we've just found eThink to be incredibly responsive and helpful.
That's great. No, we're always happy to hear that, and obviously I kind of expect what I might hear on that question because that's why you're here today. But let's dig a little bit more deeply into the implementation process. I think next is where I want to go. And so for you, that was about 3 years ago. Luis will be more recent, but that's something that, especially in the last couple of months, as people have been migrating to us during COVID, it's often been a very hurried process where you know, they really have some very acute pain, whether that's not being able to keep up with scale or something else, and have had to migrate rather quickly. So it's something that causes people some trepidation. So just talk about what you recollect of the implementation process, and you know, how long that took, and just what your overall experience was.
Sure thing. You know, at first, you know, we were just totally gung-ho all the way through. We're very confident in, as Luis was talking about, the project management process that they have laid out. I actually teach project management, so it all resonated very strongly with me. It was great. But I still had some anxiety early on when I found out that we weren't going to have site admin rights to the same extent that we did. Even though we were hosted at Moodle Rooms, we still had a lot of control over what we did with our site administration. And so I was really nervous about that at first, but it turns out that we do have a site admin link still, and we do have functions within that we can do some of the things that we really want to be able to do, like batch creating users or batch creating courses manually if we need to, customizing our language strings. There's things that we can still do that we can control. And we've also negotiated for the ability to do a few of those things that aren't generally released to clients. We had to promise that we wouldn't break them, but they let us do it. So that's been great. Anytime we run into a default setting that we'd like to have changed, all we do is just submit a ticket, and eThink just flips the switch for us. It just takes a couple of minutes a lot of times. They just get right on it. So as for the migration itself, our experience was really smooth. We had an awful lot of courses to scrub to get rid of the custom code that we had at Moodle Rooms, which is really another huge advantage of being with eThink, is that you are dealing with standard Moodle to begin with, and they aren't writing code. They aren't spending a lot of time writing code. They are just running Moodle. So you can, they'll test plugins for you. They'll add plugins all the time. So since we had so many courses that we needed to clean up, we allowed several days for the actual migration itself. And the test instance that we got from eThink allowed our IT folks to really test the flow of data from Banner to Moodle, and for us to begin documenting the new features that we were going to have, especially the new plugins we're going to be able to have. And so eThink provided us with a really clear roadmap of how we were going to get where we were going, and we experienced just very few bumps along the way. It was a very smooth process. They also did a wonderful job of designing a theme for our site that mimicked our former installation, so that for our users it was just a seamless change. They weren't really aware of anything happening other than Moodle was offline for a week or so.
Great, yeah, and you guys have a really nice looking site. I've seen it. I think we show yours quite a bit in demos that we do. So it's a good site. So no, that was excellent, I think. And Luis, I'll ask similar questions of you. And again, yours was more recent. I think it was the summer of 2019 that Correct. You all migrated. So just talk a little bit about your implementation migration experience.
So we really respected the academic calendar, and that's why we chose the summer. So if it didn't happen over the summer, we were going to postpone it until a later date. But basically, I believe it was in May when we made the decision, and we started the work in June. And it led us up to, I believe it was early August or mid-August. And as long as we stuck by the timelines and provided everything that eThink was requesting, we were basically going right through it. And I do have to thank my colleague Asha Kini. She works with Jaya, and she did an amazing job, and she always does. But this project, she really saw it through fruition. And she's the main point of contact with eThink. One of the things that I remember is, of course, you have a new system, you're setting up a new system with eThink, and when classes start, you may have to make adjustments. So we made some few adjustments here and there, but it was pretty quiet once it started. It was a really positive experience.
Good. So I think the implementation was the first topic that I wanted to specifically dig into, but now where I want to go next, Luis, and we'll stay with you for the next question is, so now that you've been with us in live for in your case, a little over a year, I think you're in your third semester. Is there anything that you've been able to do with Moodle that is new or that excites you all on campus, or that's innovative? Just talk a little bit about what you've been able to do with Moodle since you've come over.
So I know we modified the look and feel of Moodle, the theme, and that was really interesting because at Amherst I never thought we would get to that point, and it took I mean, I was nervous about it, but we modified it, and of course my colleagues announced it to the faculty and guided faculty through it, and it's been a non-issue when I think we stuck with the previous theme for many years. And I know they're using other tools that don't come to mind right now, but they're using other tools to tie into the library, tie into reserves that are really important for faculty and students. And that, again, we work closely with eThink to implement them, and it's not a problem. We've also tied recently with Zoom, and that was also a non-issue. So it's been a really positive experience. Like when we think about something that we need to do with Moodle, if we can't do it ourselves, we just send a request to eThink and they help us get it done.
Great, very good. I think the whole world uses Zoom now, so that's good that you were able to get that implemented here. So Hart, how about you? What have you been able to do? And you've got a little bit of a longer runway since implementing. I know the plugins is something you've already spoken about, that you've been able to expand your use of those. So just talk generally about what you've been able to do that's new and different and exciting.
Well, I don't, it's hard to talk about new and different and exciting in the middle of a pandemic when you're relying on your LMS for absolutely everything. But we're not really doing anything wildly different with Moodle, but one of the things that I think has been very helpful for us in being hosted is that we have our own instance of Moodle that we run on a server here. And we use this site primarily for non-credit courses. And so if a question comes up in our regular hosted site, we can look under the hood in our campus site to find out what our options might be, or to give you guys an idea of where to look for a solution that we might be able to apply to our institutional site. So that has taken care of a lot of the anxiety that we had at the beginning about not having all of those links in our admin panel. So I really recommend that to people. Great.
And I think you mentioned, obviously, the pandemic has changed, I think, the way everybody has used the LMS and led to a lot higher adoption. Let's talk about that a little bit more. We've done a lot of sessions over the last couple of months about effective teaching and learning with Moodle, for example. I think our experience has been that clients that didn't really use the system as extensively had no choice. Faculty that maybe were reluctant to really do much had no choice. So adoption in general has just gone up a lot. Just talk a little bit about how, what your experience has been there. What has the pandemic forced to be different in Moodle? Just in general, kind of, how you've been able to navigate the changes that you've experienced because of COVID.
Yeah, well, naturally the use has just increased exponentially. And what's been helpful is that eThink was able to help us quantify the changes that we've seen with some customized reports. So we could actually give people some ideas about how much more it's being used than it was before the pandemic struck. We're also on the quarter system, so we have 4 quarters a year, and our state shut down in mid-March. So all of our winter term finals ran on Moodle. We had a little bit of trouble with students being bumped out of quizzes on like Tuesday of finals week, because we turned the data volume up to 11 or 12 on a system that only goes to 10. But eThink ran a fix overnight, and that ensured that we had no more problems with people getting dropped out of quizzes. We also got help from eThink with Raider Moodle, which is that site that we host ourselves. Our institution is affiliated with an OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. We have like more than 1,000 people who belong to it. It's just huge here. And what OSHA does is provides classes for senior members in our community. So like us, OSHA or Ollie has been forced to move to remote instruction this year. So they came to us for help. And we decided to set them up on our standalone version of Moodle. And but our challenge was that that site was running a different version of Moodle with a completely different theme. So none of all the documentation that we've created for our faculty and students would transfer over to all these users. And we certainly didn't have the bandwidth to write anything new at that point. So we asked our IT to upgrade our site, and then asked eThink if they could provide screenshots of our SOU theme settings so that we could duplicate the look of our institutional site on our Raider Moodle site. And so eThink sent over the screenshots the very next day, and we were up and running with a new look that rendered all of our documentation viable and useful for those Ollie users. So having those specs from eThink was tremendously helpful and made all the difference for us.
That's great. That's a really interesting story. I'd not really heard much about that, but I think that's one of the things that's interesting about these sessions when we do them is I hear interesting stories I'd not heard before. So so that's a really good one. Luis, how about you? What has been your experience through COVID with how Moodle has been utilized, and what you've been able to do hopefully more and better through this pandemic?
So it's definitely the usage has increased, and we decided to go remote back in early or mid-March, and it was all of a sudden, like I think it happened to many institutions. And of course, the choice was to use Moodle for many aspects of teaching. My colleagues also helped tie Zoom into Moodle, and that's just one example of something that I didn't expect that would help us, because instead of teaching all faculty how to go into Zoom, for example, and do something with Zoom, we just told them to set up their courses for Zoom through Moodle, and we would show them one interface, and we would show the students one interface to access their courses for Zoom. And it was all through Moodle. So, and I believe we did one or two other things that way, where instead of showing faculty and students how to do it differently, we just basically routed them through Moodle, and it really improved the instructions that we were providing, our communications. So I was really thankful about that, and that caught me by surprise, because I didn't expect to one day say, oh, we're leveraging Moodle to help people get their job done on some other system. But it was pleasantly surprising.
That's good. That's good. And actually, I wanted to just clarify for folks that are listening. What, Luis, you first. What is the mix of instruction right now at Amherst? Do you have students on campus? Are they doing blended, or what does that look like?
So we have everything, but we have about 50% of the student body on campus. And I want to say probably 20–25% of faculty are teaching on campus. For those who, mostly it's those who have all their students on campus. But we also have faculty remote, and we also have faculty who are remote and have a mix of on-campus students and off-campus. So that's why I said we have a mix of everything. And we have asynchronous and synchronous teaching as well, because we have students all over the world at this point, like pretty much every other institution.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hart, I think, unfortunately for you, you've not only dealt with the pandemic on your campus, but also the sort of environmental disaster that has gone out in that part of the country. So what does it look like right now for your students? How are they learning?
Yeah, we had an urban wildfire that came through September 8th and took out about half of a couple of towns just immediately north of our campus. And it took out about 2,300 residents. It's been just really devastating for folks. So that's added another whole layer of stress to our faculty and staff and student body. Fortunately, the campus was not damaged, and we had very few people were physically harmed by the fires. But we have some students on campus in our residence halls. We have very few courses being held on campus. It's almost all remote instruction with some synchronous, some blended, and some fully online. So I think we have avoided to the greatest extent possible the whole high flex model of having people in class and remote at the same time, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, it's such a moving target, I think, as well. But it sounds like everybody's doing the best they can, which is all we can do. I think where I want to go next, and I'll encourage the folks that are listening, if you have any questions that you want Hart and Luis to answer, please go ahead and put those in the questions pane. We probably just have a few more topics here to go through, and then we will have some time left for questions. So go ahead and put those in now. But Hart, why don't you speak first just to your overall assessment of where you are with Moodle, you know, how you feel about, you know, us as a partner and going forward into the future with Moodle by eThink.
So we're just really happy to be hosted by people who genuinely care about our experience and who actively work to make it better. I had the opportunity to go to, this was back when we could go to conferences. Remember when we could go to conferences? I went
Those
to
were the days.
Yeah, those were the days. I got to go to the National Moodle Moot last year. So in September of 2019, I got to go to the National Moot in Philadelphia, and I got to meet a bunch of eThink folks right in person. And the first one I said, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, absolutely. So these guys are just my peeps, you know. I really feel like we are partners in this endeavor. And you guys know me, you know us, you care about our students, you care about what the experience is like for our faculty, and you just always want to make it better. So I'm just really a happy camper with you guys.
That's great. Yeah, I think the team will be thrilled to hear you say that. So thank you. And Luis, how about you? The same question, just your overall assessments of kind of where you are with Moodle and where you're headed as our partner.
Well, I hope you'll allow us to renew next year, because we hope to stick with eThink. But basically, it's been great. It's been a great experience, and we feel really comfortable when we submit a request that it will be taken care of and it will be considered very seriously and very quickly too. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you know, the response time is impressive. And, you know, like Hart said, you take things very seriously and you really care for the product, you care for the customer, and the customer feedback is important to you. So I have no complaints, honestly. It's one of those things that, you know, if I were given the choice to do it all over again, I will do it the same way all over again, because it was very, very positive.
Great. Well, thank you again for those comments. And the last question that I have before we see if we have anything from the audience, and Luis, I'll ask you first, is just if there's any advice that you want to offer to anyone that is listening, and that could be related to you know, any aspect of what we've talked about here, whether that is you know, process or you know, how to go about making a decision, or something more specific to Moodle or eThink. What might that be?
I think back when we were having the initial conversation, so this was new to my colleague in ATS, Jaya Cannon, taking a system and moving it to the cloud. So that's why I helped her so much with the project, because she needed someone who had been through similar transitions. And I would say the same thing that I told her. It's like, don't overthink it. Let's go through the process and have a partner within your IT that can help you navigate the technical aspect of it. But there's no reason to be worried about it. There's no reason to be afraid. You know, you choose eThink, you're going to have a very solid partner. So they will guide you through the process as well. So that's what I would offer.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Luis. and thanks for being here. And so Hart, how about you? Any advice that you have for folks that are listening?
Yeah, always. So basically, you know, if you're currently self-hosted, don't be afraid about giving up control of your site. You'll still be able to call the shots in so many respects, and you won't have to worry about security patches or upgrades or backups or any of the stuff that can keep you awake at night. You'll lose a little bit of control, but you'll gain great peace of mind. Getting changes made is no problem and usually doesn't take any time at all. If you're currently hosted, eThink has great experience in migrating installations, and their customer service is as good as they say it is. So we're really happy to have a true partner for our Moodle.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for your kind words and for joining on this session here today. I want to take a look here at what questions, if any, we have. It looks like we did just have a couple that came in. Give me a second to read through these. I think one of the questions is a rather technical one, and that relates to as the questioner frames it. How do you keep Moodle nimble, being clean, fast, active? And I think in part that's a question that we would answer in terms of how we scale and how we make sure that the system is performing as it should. I think, Hart, you alluded to this earlier, so maybe I'll ask you this a little bit. When you had examinations back in the spring, Moodle, as anyone that has used Moodle for some time is aware, is not necessarily designed to have many concurrent quiz sessions going on. So what's your recollection of what happened there and how we were able to help make sure that your exams went off as planned for the most part?
Yeah, sorry. When we started getting calls from, we got notices from a couple of faculty saying, hey, my students have gotten dropped out. We put in a ticket right away and said this is, we gave it a high priority, and we heard back instantly. And so the eThink systems admins looked at what was going on, saw that we were just getting hammered because of all the quiz activity we had going on, and they explained to us that it's just really data rich stuff, and they just weren't really ready. Nobody was anticipating the kind of hammer we were getting hit with. So overnight they they changed some system overnight and ran something that basically beefed up our capacity for processing data on our site. And so after that, we had no more trouble at all. Everything just ran really smoothly. But one of the things that really impresses me about eThink is if we've had any kind of technical problem, we've had very, very few. But anytime we've had any technical problem, a lot of times I'll hear back directly from the COO. And, I don't just hear from one of the technicians. I hear from the person at the top saying, this is what happened, and this is what we've done about it, and we don't anticipate that this will happen again, or if it does, this is what we're going to do about it. I mean, it's always very transparent and very clear. I have to say, we've all worked with help desks, right? There's only been one instance in the 3 or so years we've been with eThink where I wanted to pound my head on the desk about a response I got to one of my questions. And the rest of the time, it's all just smooth. And we generally, I put in a ticket and people understand what I'm asking and get right back to me with the answer I need.
That's great. Yeah, very, very good. One out of 3 years isn't so bad then, I suppose.
No, that's
we'll take
doable.
That. And I think I saw something earlier today that I'll share in terms of scaling and whatnot that I thought was really interesting. I think the key is to anticipate when the scale is going to be needed, and I think that's what we've really experienced is with our clients is when they're going to have a big event, when they're going to have a lot of students taking exams or doing something concurrently, just to give us a heads up so we can anticipate the resources that are required. I actually saw one of our UK-based clients who does primarily online assessments and examinations had, I guess, a deadline to today or yesterday for one of their examinations. And they had 13,202 submissions to that examination in the final 24 hours. So I think that's an example. That's a lot a lot of people on the site, and I'm sure we were aware of that deadline and anticipated it. So I think that was an interesting little current example. Luis, I want to ask something related to what we were just talking about, and if you don't know the answer, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but there was also something in this question that this person asked just about best practice for the data that they keep. Obviously, you know, the more data you keep, the more you can leverage for reporting. I'm just curious, and as I said, Luis, if you're not certain of this answer, no worries, because I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but what is Amherst's practice in terms of what you keep, and you know what your retention policies are for data?
You know, it's funny you asked, because I was involved in that process, and I am drawing a blank right now about how much we imported, but I believe we imported a ton of data into when we migrated, and we set up a different backup schedule with eThink, because initially when we launched, we wanted to be able to back everything up. I want to say eThink allows 2 offboarding backups where you can bring them on site a year, and we brought that up to 4. I may be mistaken about the numbers, but I know we increased it. But I'm drawing a blank right now about if we brought all courses or only a few years back. So I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. And honestly, every client is different. Some clients see the migration as an opportunity to clean things up. Maybe they've retained, you know, 9 years of data, and they say, we really don't need all of that. We actually, I can tell you, we have clients, we've been in business for almost 13 years. We have some clients that have been with us since, that first January of 2008 that we began the business, that have all of that data. I don't think that's necessarily best practice, but we don't limit total site storage. So if that's what a client wants, then that works. That works. Hart, how about you? What is your practice at SOU for what you retain, and what your experience has been there?
We like to keep it all. So we've done some archiving with you guys, and we have some we've had some conversations we need to swing back around to and get that want to make some changes and make that work. But we have felt really good about being able to have what we need to have active and live as we need it. We haven't felt any pressure at all from eThink to reduce the size of our site, or to, we don't have to keep that in mind at all. We just run, and that's been great.
Yeah. And as I said, that's our policy. We don't limit total site storage. So it really just becomes an institutional decision. There was another question here that I'll ask. I'll sort of reframe in a way that I think might be instructive for everyone. And Hart, maybe I'll ask you this first. But what we provide is administrator support. We do the tier 2 kinds of support, and then our clients have their help desk that handles the I can't log into my account. How do I reset my password? Those kinds of things. What has been your experience? One of the things that I've heard anecdotally over the years is that because I think generally speaking we do a good job of managing Moodle, keeping it up, keeping it running the way that it should. That those help desk queries, in some cases clients have said, have gone down because it just works better. Has that been your experience, or what is your experience with your help desk and the Moodle kinds of things you get from students, and your experience having to escalate those perhaps to us, and how that's worked?
So it's Moodle itself has just gotten better and better and better. So we really don't have a lot of tickets, and we hardly ever have to take a user request to you guys. It's much more administrative stuff in terms of asking for plugins, or trying to get something to work a little bit differently than it does, or changing our default settings that we can't get at ourselves. Those tend to be the kinds of tickets we put in. Every now and then we have a course that gets possessed, and we have to figure out what's going on with it, and we have to ask for help with that. But it's not a lot different than it was before. But any time we do ask for help, it's just so much more pleasant asking you guys.
Good. I'm sure that's the faculty's fault when a course is possessed.
Yeah,
It's
generally.
not Moodle's fault. Yeah.
Bless their
So,
heart.
Luis, yes, they try. Luis, how about you? How do you manage the help desk at Amherst? What has been your experience with the volume of those things and just how that's changed since you've been hosted?
So the help desk actually reports through my teams. So I see full visibility into what comes in. And the issues that we had before were very different. It had to do a lot with the plumbing of the system. We no longer see any of that or much of that at all. And instead, my colleagues in ATS can concentrate on helping faculty with teaching. And that's really what you want to do. You want to be in a spot where you can help faculty improve their teaching using the tools we provide, including Moodle, as opposed to worrying that a database didn't connect or that the site is slow. And that's been a big shift because we used to get tickets about something not working, and now it's more about how do I do X, Y, or Z, and that's where my ATS colleagues step in and assist faculty.
Good. I think that's the kind of answer you'd want once you move to managed hosting. So that's great. Another question that just came in here that I think is interesting, a different topic that I can ask you both about, and Luis, we'll go with you first, is what is the utilization of the mobile app at Amherst? Is that something that has been increasingly adopted during COVID, or just in general, what is the utilization of the app?
So I'm not aware of anyone using the app, to be honest with you. I don't know, but I'm not aware of it.
They probably are, and you don't even know it, but
they could be, yeah.
My guess. Yeah. Hart, how about you at SOU? Is that something that is utilized? Is it something that you've you've pushed, or is it just kind of left to people to use on their own?
We don't actively push it. We do have information about it in an HTML block on our landing page, so that everybody knows that they can access it with a mobile app. And I think that we do have quite a few students who are using it that way. One of the things that's been really great with we're running version 3.8 right now, and one of the reasons that we were very anxious to go there was because of the new forum revamp that they did. And so we were using open forums because we came over from Moodle Rooms and we really liked the way their forums worked, but those forums didn't work on mobile. And so one of the other huge advantages, besides all the other advantages that the new forums offer, is that they are functional on the mobile device. So that's really been a great boon for a lot of folks.
That's great. Yeah, that was something that over the years, as we brought a lot of Moodle Rooms customers over, so there were a couple of those plugins that were sticky, but I think for the most part that has ceased to be an issue, and we generally transitioned people away from those and found alternatives. And the person that asked the question about mobile, I think, also asked about the customized mobile application, which honestly we only have a handful of our clients that use the branded version of the app. That's something that can be done by way of a partner that Moodle HQ actually does that work to brand the app, but we only have a handful that do that. So generally speaking, our clients are using the freely available app that's in the store, and that works well for most. So we just have a couple of minutes left. I think we've covered some of the questions that came in from our audience. So I think we'll say some final words and wrap things up. But Hart, let me ask you first if there's just any final words you want to share before we wrap.
Oh, I think I've said enough. You guys are great. It's been really fun talking about eThink, and talking about Moodle is always one of my absolutely favorite things to do. So talking about eThink and Moodle at the same time, it just doesn't get any better than that.
Well, thank you, Hart. Thank you for being here, and I hope hopefully next year at this time we'll be able to be at a Moodle Mood in person and see everybody again. So, Luis, how about yourself? Any final closing words before we wrap here today?
I'm just going to echo what Hart said. It's been a great experience, and I'm happy to be here and share the good news with everybody else. Very
good. And Luis, likewise, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience at Amherst, and perhaps we'll get a chance to meet you in person at a Moot or somewhere else down the line. So that is the end of our session here today. Hopefully this has been informative for everybody that has been listening in. I want to thank again Hart Wilson and Luis Hernandez for joining us. We will share a recording of this, so if you joined partway through and didn't get to see the whole thing, we will share this. And actually, before I wrap, I'll put my contact information up on the screen here as well. If you want to reach out, ask any questions, please feel free to do so. And if you are interested in speaking to our panelists directly, feel free to reach out. They both agreed that if anyone wants to speak to them, I'll be happy to pass along their information. So send me an email and I'll get you in touch. But thank you again, everyone, for joining here today. Hart and Luis for joining, and everybody have a good rest of your day. Be healthy and be safe. And we will look forward to talking to you again soon.